Tell me what gender you identify as.
I am gender non-conforming, but masculine from center and also trans in a lot of ways.
What is your sexual orientation?
I am, well, this one I go back and forth on a lot. I think I'm demisexual, which means I need to be emotionally attracted to someone before I can be physically attracted to them.
Want to start with gender identity?
I would say I have like a no labels kind of policy to someone who layman's terms or whatever. Someone who doesn't understand that stuff. I'd keep it pretty simple. Like, yeah, no labels. I don't really identify with being female, like bottom line.
Right.
And I like to think of myself as more masculine on the spectrum, if there is a spectrum.
Right. And when did you kind of know this? I mean, it's from birth. Is that what you believe as well?
Oh yeah, like I always knew I wasn't really female. I remember telling my parents growing up, like, Mom, I'm not a boy or a girl, I'm just a kid. So.
That's some deep insight for a kid. Have you come out to family members or friends? What's that been like?
I've come out to most of my friends. Most people call me Phoenix, and that's my preferred name. But as far as like my mom and dad, I haven't really been able to sort of concretely come out to them because I go back and forth on whether or not I consider myself a man. And ultimately, I think I lean more towards being a man.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of hard to explain when you're still figuring things out.
Yeah. And siblings, same.
Yeah, my brother knows. He calls me his brother sister.
That must make you feel good.
Yeah.
What's it been like coming out to friends? I mean, has anyone had any different reaction?
A lot of people, like a lot of guys, don't get it. I found out they still, they don't respect my preferred pronouns, and which are they there. They call me like female, like pet names like doll and this and the other thing, and that I don't really know how to talk to them about that because it's like I don't want to be like a jerk, but like I don't know. It feels wrong to sometimes nitpick like in the moment when I'm experiencing that, but that's something I'm figuring out how to deal with the situations.
Why does it feel wrong to you to nitpick?
Mostly, I think maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know, and it kind of brings up a situation where I'm confronting them about something, and then I have to like be more defined. You know what I mean? Whereas I prefer to avoid those situations.
That makes sense. But you said you prefer the pronouns of they and their when someone's addressing you. Why do you not prefer he or him?
I'm not sure yet. Like, I don't mind he and him, but then it like sometimes it'll bring up more awkward situations where you get misgendered where someone thinks I'm female, and then I have to be like, no, actually I'm trans.
That makes sense.
I mean?
Yeah.
But secretly I like he and him too.
So, what has been the most difficult part during this transition?
I think the most difficult part for me is because I'm not in hormone replacement therapy, I have to run into those little, awkward situations where I'm still misgendered quite a lot. Even though I do pass from time to time, I still use the women's bathroom. I still, run into like awkward situations like that.
Speaking of that, I mean, has there been stigma associated with your transition? And I mean, what are the annoying things you've been asked that you'd like to clear up and say, enough, stop asking me?
Mostly like people are confused about, how I can be trans and not, physically transitioning. And for that, I say you don't have to like have those physical attributes to still identify as a man. You know what I mean?
And what's been a positive? What's been, great about this transition, about finally coming out and being who you are?
Well, it's that exactly. I finally get to be who I am. I finally get to be comfortable in my own skin around, the people I love, and it's great. It's amazing. I'm finally like able to embrace, myself and embrace like real beauty and stuff like that.
That's awesome. How old were you when that?
Well, like when I was little, it didn't really matter as much because we don't, before puberty, we don't have, as different parts, so to speak. But when I started having to wear a bra and stuff, like that's when I was like, this is wrong. Get this off of me. Like it sucked, and like when I started, having my period, like that was like a nightmare. Like it's still like a very tedious period, like when it comes around, and it just always felt wrong. It felt wrong to have, uterus. It felt wrong to be able to, conceive that way. And I don't ever plan to, get pregnant or anything like that. Because it always, in my mind, seemed like it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't belong.
Yeah. It doesn't get clearer than that.
Yeah. But, like, sometimes it's more complicated than, being in the wrong body. Because, everybody has different kinds of bodies. So, some guys just have, the parts I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm trying to accept that. But it's still really difficult.
What has it been like for you to identify as a transgender person from, say, childhood through puberty, through maybe high school, to college age, where you are now?
I didn't have any meaning, but once, I hit middle school and, my body started changing, everybody else's body started changing, the things became more defined in that way. It just went kind of downhill. Like my grades, like in middle school, were like terrible. They started like going down like after like 7th grade, and then since then, there was always just something off. And in high school, I would try to suppress it, and I would try to be super feminine and like embrace femininity, and, like in all the stereotypical ways, and it led to a lot of harmful behaviors for me. That sort of had, lasting psychological effects. And finally now in college age where I was, able to, cut my hair short and like dress the way I want to, things definitely got easier. Like, things got easier and more difficult because I had to finally like be like, oh, okay, this is what I am now, like I had to answer my own questions with, the answers that I pretty much already knew.
Yeah.
But it can still be like, it was good and bad at first. But definitely now it's like smoothed out.
You said that in high school you tried to dress more feminine to meet that stereotype, and as a kid, did that not really stick out for you? Like, parents try to dress little girls in dresses and boys, and
I would never put on a dress. Like, my mom had to fight me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She like tricked me into wearing like these tight pants under them. It was always like that. And like even in like high school, I would wear leggings under like skirts and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I was fooling myself.
Yeah.
I was fooling myself. Not saying that everyone who does that is transgender.
Watch out, you people out there. Your skirts and leggings. So how do you feel about how transgender individuals are depicted in movies, TV?
As far as like trans guys, I mean, there's Boys Don't Cry. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I haven't seen it.
It's about Brandon Cena, who was a trans guy who was murdered and killed in Nebraska. It was. He was raped and murdered by his friends after they found out his true identity, and that, although it's a beautiful film, it kind of leaves me feeling like sort of, I don't know, like, I mean, because he's victimized, it doesn't really leave you with much hope, which sucks, and it's the reality of, like, what happened to him. But I would like to see more, like, empowering, representations of trans people in media. And there's Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black, which is great, but there's a lot of, flaws with her depiction, too.
Yeah.
She's, in the second season, I felt like she was very, like, one-dimensional and not given as much depth as the other characters. But, yeah, like, it definitely, there's always room for improvement in that field.
A word of advice from you on how we can better advocate for transgender individuals and children especially who, you know, are in that phase where they're helpless kind of growing up.
I would say don't look at like mainstream depictions of what it's like to be trans. Like look for you know, the ones who don't have voices, the ones who are, you know, homeless, the ones who are, you know, getting really the shit end of the stick. Sorry. And then trans people of color have it, I think, you know, the worst because their representation in the media is like very, very minimal. Like Laverne Cox is like the only, you know, sort of voice for them. And for us, I should say, because I'm a trans person of color as well. Cece McDonald, like, you know Cece McDonald? She was thrown in jail for defending herself from a neo-Nazi who attacked her. She's a trans woman of color. And she's serving time. I think she's supposed to get out soon, but there's like this whole campaign to like set her free and like make a movie about her, I think. And,
Wow.
like I would say definitely look up on her and you know what she's all about because I mean there's so many people like her that don't get recognized and like they get murdered like even in Syracuse, even in like upstate New York, like where you think that we're so much more progressive and whatnot, we're not, you know. There's a lot that like the mainstream LGBT movement just doesn't, you know, recognize and like that, you know, we personally don't identify with in the mainstream LGBT movement because it's so, you know, assimilatory in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I would advocate for like looking into more, you know, more excluded, you know, groups.
Yeah. And what has been your personal experience in working with either teachers or maybe counselors as a transgender person?
For the most part, in school, it hasn't really come up. Like, my birth name is on the, you know, enrollment list, so I go by that, and it doesn't really, you know, come up at all where I can be like, actually, I prefer this, and actually, I'm this way. Like, it doesn't intersect really. But with counselors and, like, you mean, like, therapists and psychiatrists? Yeah, like, I have seen quite a few over the past few years. And I don't know, some of them just don't get it. Like some of them want to get it, but they don't. Some of them think something else is the problem, something like that. But right now, I'm lucky that I see someone who is actually very understanding and genderqueer herself.
Good.
So working with her has been an absolute privilege. But it took a long time to find her. Definitely, there could be a lot more education in that regard.
What have you said to people that have been misunderstanding?
Really not be very confrontational. I mean, I used to be very militant. I used to be like, you know, this, that, the other thing. This is what I believe. This is my identity. You're invalidating me. You know what I mean? But mostly I've come to the realization it's not really my job to teach everybody a lesson. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'm a lot happier since then. But I wish I could. You know, I wish everybody could, you know, tell their story to everyone and be understood. But I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak to, you know, my own experience. And sometimes it's not enough for people, you know.
Did you have fears or concerns about doing this interview and maybe what the people watching it are thinking or are going to say?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot about what people think of me all the time. I mean, and right now, I really want to say something meaningful, and I really want to say something that resonates with people. And I'm not sure if I am, and I hope I am.
I think you are. I think everyone would agree to that.
Thank you.